My interaction with the family court system has been significantly more traumatic than war. More traumatic than watching my friends die, and more traumatic than having my body destroyed. I had the ability to change the outcome of things in any given situation in war. I could try a little harder, I could fight a little harder, I could motivate myself to hold on one moment longer. In this situation, all I could do was stand by and watch the horror unfold while they took everything away from me. I would now like to give you a brief history of my relationship with my ex-girlfriend and the child that we have had together, so you may understand my plight, and you may understand the reason for me speaking with you here this evening. We were in a relationship for 2 years. Over the course of our relationship, my ex engaged in patterns of domestic violence against me, which began with emotional, verbal, and quickly escalated to physical abuse. Her abusive behavior dramatically escalated after she discovered she had become pregnant. This new pattern of behavior climaxed with an arrest for a Class 3 assault against me, where she also endangered the life of our, at that time, unborn child by slamming the door into her stomach in a fit of rage. There was a criminal case that I started against her about this situation, but it was recently dropped by the Adams County courts because she was deemed too incompetent to understand what's going on, yet she was deemed competent enough to take my son away from me. After the initial arrest, a protective order was issued against her by Adams County. Where I was grateful for the protective order, my ex used this as a pretext to deny me any access to my newly born son, Benjamin, therefore alienating him from me. Despite this tactic, she violated the protective order on several occasions, coming to my house and telling me things like, "I will teach your son Benjamin that you never loved him and that you never wanted anything to do with him." On one such occasion, she brought Benjamin to my house using him as a tool, demanding that I drop all the charges against her in return for allowing me access to my son Benjamin. This was the only time I have ever seen my son in person. It is my understanding that people are usually arrested for violating said protective orders, but this never occurred with my ex, despite notifying authorities and providing video evidence of said incident. A few weeks later, I was contacted by the Child Protective Services, who informed me that there were serious concerns, including possible removal of my child from my ex's home, due to her squeezing his head in the middle of the night, trying to get him to stop crying due to colic symptoms. This violent action happened for several days before it was described to her therapist, who then called CPS. The outcome was that my ex's mother was given custody by the CPS department, ignoring the biological father. I was never considered for custody, despite the fact I have set up a home for Benjamin, I have studied parenting literature, I have purchased all non-perishable items required for early child rearing. I have investigated early child nutrition, breast milk sharing programs, and I work from home. On top of all of this, I have repeatedly expressed a desire to share custody and help raise my son. To this day, because of this unjust system, I have never even held or interacted with my son. All right? At our first and only custody hearing, Judge Meacham of Adams County made fun of me for having a restraining order against my abusive ex-partner. Adams County then as a whole went on to ignore her violent pattern of abuse. Furthermore, she and her mother have refused to cooperate with court-ordered visitation instructions, blaming my work schedule for the refusal. Due to this, my contribution to my son's life has been limited to only child support, and he does not even know what I look like. If this were reversed and I were a woman and my ex were a man, she would be sitting in a jail cell facing felony charges for assaulting me and our child, and she would be experiencing consequences for violating said protective order. Instead, my poor defenseless son faces a life without his father in the hands of a violent monster, and there is nothing I can do. I have read the literature on life outcomes for children without fathers living in chaotic environments. My son faces increased likelihood of crime, incarceration, antisocial behavior, drug addiction, and suicide. This is the horror I have to watch unfold, unable to change anything in a situation and a system that protects an abuser. The child support system is broken. Courts immediately presume the child living with the mother and the father paying child support with no visitation rights as the best option, when at very least I deserve 50-50 custody for the benefit of my child. We need to abandon this antiquated and broken system for a gender-neutral system that outlines the true merits of a potential parental figure within a child's life.
See, now that one actually brought a tear to my eye. Even though I'm not a father myself, I felt deeply for that man. Hell, it's the empath in me. That man was shaken. That man was hurt at the fact that he is trying and doing everything in his power to show the court system that he is a suitable parent, but for whatever reason, and we know what the reason is, his baby mama, they do not want to relinquish the child over to him. After this woman has proved that she didn't even want the child in the first place. She slammed that door against her stomach when the child was inside of her. She proved that she didn't want this child. She is causing physical and emotional and psychological pain to this child. But they won't give the child over to the father, someone who the child doesn't even know. The child hasn't seen him and he hasn't seen the child. What reason would you not give the child over to the other guardian, the parent, the other parent? Y'all don't even give it a chance. They're taking the word of the mother over the word of the father, and it's clear as day that this is a good man. But I warn you guys, be very careful, be very selective of the women that you choose to give your time, space, and energy to. Because if you choose wrongly, you could end up in a situation like this. But at the same time, we know that women are master manipulators. And maybe they will show you a different side to them. And then once they have you in their grasp, then they show you this.
How does a woman have 5 or 6 children and still end up in a nursing home?
My mom had me when she was 20. And when I was 16 years old, I walked into the kitchen and without any warning, she told me that I ruined her youth. Because she had me at 20, I ruined her youth. When my brother was 13, she decided to tell him that the man that had raised him his entire life wasn't his dad, just because her and my stepdad were having an argument. When my youngest brother was 11, he couldn't find his glasses one morning before she took him to school because she had shaken the bed and they fell off the bed. While he was on his hands and knees looking for those glasses, she kicked him in the ribs. That's how. And that's where she's gonna end up.
Now that's crazy because the woman that I'm currently talking to is a CNA, and she has told me stories of the patients that she has. She works with the elderly, right? And the older women that she works with, rarely ever does she see, if ever, someone come in to check on them, a family member, a husband, a loved one, a boyfriend, anyone come in to check on them to see how they're doing. Usually it's the men that have their wives or their children come in and see how they're doing while they're being taken care of in these facilities. Why is it that so many women are being left to die alone? I want y'all to really piece it together. Think about your experience, maybe some people in your family or some of your friends or people that you've dated. Think about some of the stories that they have told you in regards to the relationships that they had with their mom. I could think of one of the women that I talked to earlier this year and how it was so clear that so much of her issue derived from the fact that she did not have a healthy relationship with her mom. She would always put all this emphasis on the fact that she hasn't spoken to her mom in months because of something that happened between the two of them. And in saying that, it has me thinking about the fact that I know there's a lot of women that treat daughters different than they treat sons. They might give the daughter the hardest time in the world, but they might treat that son like he's a prince. But they don't realize that when they're doing that, they're sending these young girls out into the world, and these young girls are no better than they are because they're learning all of these bad traits from their mom, and now they're dishing it out to the world, whether it's in a relationship or rather it's with their own children. The cycle continues.
So I found out that there's a true crime section of TikTok about my own sister. So I want to talk about her. So my sister Marianne was 13 years old in 1997. Our home life was terrible and she ran away and predators took her and did horrible things and unalived her. You can Google Marianne Measles if you want details, if you have good intentions. The media was horrible to my sister, making it seem like she was much older than she was and that basically bad things happened because she deserved it. It was very horrible. The media was absolutely terrible, but they never knew what was going on behind the scenes. She looks happy and loving, right? No. Looks like she's gonna, you know, pow me. But that's because we had a horrible life. My sister ran away because we were being abused. Physically, mentally, emotionally, not having food in the house, not having support or any other adult around to protect us from this person. Yeah, it was horrible. And my mom gets painted in this like light that like she's the victim here, like, oh, your baby was taken away. But all of the outlets, media outlets, refuse to see that the reason my sister left was because of her. It was because of the abuse, the physical abuse, and not having food and not having necessities for survival. It was literally a survival move. Like, I just had to set the record straight for these true crime people who kind of paint my mom in this victim light, when in reality, my mom was the catalyst and the reason why my sister was unsafe in our home and left. And the reason why I have dissociative identity disorder. Like, this story is so much more nuanced than people understand or than the media will show. And we have to talk about it.
Damn, hell, that brought a tear to my eye too, listening to her story, because it reminded me of my cousin. My cousin was also 12, 13 years old when she ran away from home because she wasn't receiving the proper treatment from her own mother. By the time she was 14, 15 years old, before she got to high school, she was pregnant. Life was difficult for her, and it continues to be difficult for her. You saw the girl in that video. You could tell from the moment the video started that there was something not right with her life. You saw she had the black lipsticks with the all black and the bleach dyed hair. Usually people that have that type of style is for a reason. Growing up, every goth and emo that I knew had a dark past or a dark present. But the way they expressed themselves was with how they dressed, and usually it was in all black. Anyway, y'all, leave your thoughts, comments, and opinions down below. I'm sure y'all got some stories to tell, and I'm gonna talk to you guys in the next one. See ya.